Welcome back. Hopefully you're back for our second our second live Facebook broadcast of Ask Vancouver. So I want to share a few updates with you and then answer a couple of questions that folks submitted in advance. So on the update front, give you an update on the Vancouver Waterfront. This is a project that we've been maturing for a number of years now, and the development efforts along our historic downtown waterfront continue. So construction on the waterfront park was briefly slowed in the spring because the Columbia River was at extraordinarily high water. But with the receding of the waters into the summer months here, we've got construction back at full speed on the 7-acre waterfront park, as well as the Grant Street Pier. In addition to that, there is now a crane up on the waterfront that is evidence of the quickly moving construction at Block 6 down there. And Block 6, you will soon see a 7-story office building rising, as well as a 6-story apartment building. And both of those will be anchored at their ground floor with new retail shops at the ground floor there. The office building, the anchor tenant there, will be the Murdoch Charitable Trust, a long-standing institution here in Vancouver. In addition to that, there are 2 restaurant buildings right at the foot of Grant Street, where the Grant Street meets the waterfront pier. Construction on those has moved very swiftly, and if you get a chance to go down and do a tour of the waterfront, you can see those new 2-story buildings rising at the foot of Grant Street there. In addition to what's going on with that portion of the waterfront, the City Council recently approved a master redevelopment plan for the Port of Vancouver Terminal 1, which has historically been occupied by the Red Lion Inn at the Quay. This will guide redevelopment of the 10.3-acre site with a range of uses, and it is anticipated to include as many as 355 residences, 62,000 square feet of retail space, about 200,000 square feet of office space, and is a 160-room hotel. So that plan also includes the potential reuse of some of the existing buildings on the site as a public marketplace, kind of like a small-scale Pike's Place market. So the Port, in support of that project, also just received nearly a $500,000 grant to extend a path that would connect the city's new waterfront park that will be finished next year with the existing Renaissance Trail that runs along the entire waterfront there, just to the east of Terminal 1. So overall, the waterfront development is coming together. A new project that we're referring to currently as Tower Mall is located in the center of the city. And if you're a longtime resident of Vancouver, you probably recognize the term Tower Mall. It was originally developed as a mall in the early 70s. It's located just about in the center of the city, right at the intersection of Mill Plain and Devine. Last month, the City Council closed on the purchase of that property for the purpose of redevelopment, and also enacted a moratorium so that we can kind of freeze development in the area to provide us a little bit of time to develop a long-range vision for redevelopment of not only the mall site itself, but the surrounding acreage into a revitalized urban village there. So it's a very exciting project that's happening in a part of the city that hasn't seen a whole lot of development for a number of years, and the mall itself has been struggling and in decline for decades. So we're excited about taking that project on and bringing new vitality to that part of the city. Over on the east side of the city, the Riverview Gateway project. It's a sub-area that was adopted in the last several years, located right at the foot of 192nd Avenue, where it interchanges with State Route 14. The initial phase of the Columbia Palisades development, which is in that sub-area, broke ground. So the site was formerly a Washington State Department of Transportation rock quarry, but it's a 186-acre site that has sweeping views of the Columbia River and great access to SR 14. It's being graded in preparation for streets, utilities, and ultimately new private development there. The eastern gateway to the city, which is right where that's located, will really be transformed by this project, which when it's fully complete will be a mixed-use project with retail, residential, office, employment, and public parks and open spaces and trails. Over 2 million square feet of new development will be developed on that site over the next couple of decades. So be an exciting new addition, adding vibrancy to the east side of town, right at that eastern gateway of the city. So on other fronts, I wanted to give an update to our affordable housing efforts. In November of last year, our voters supported at the ballots creation of an affordable housing fund. They, by a 57% margin, voted in a property tax increase to fund affordable housing. That ballot measure will provide $6 million a year for 7 years. That is focused on creating additional affordable housing, preserving existing affordable housing, and preventing homelessness for members of our community. Wanted to give you an update that the initial grant period application for use of those funds by the community closed just recently. We're taking a look along with a small group of community leaders and citizens who have assisted the city in reviewing the projects and making a recommendation on funding for those projects. And we'll be bringing that forward to the City Council in the coming weeks for their review and consideration. If you go to our website, you can see a full list of housing projects that were submitted in this grant funding cycle. And I look forward to presenting to the City Council on August 21st the outcomes of the rankings and the recommendations there. If you do have want to provide comment or input to that process, you can email us at affordablehousingcomments, all one word, at cityofvancouver.us. On other fronts, we've also used a few other tools in the city's toolbox to help support creation of affordable housing. There is the ability to waive impact fees for very low-income affordable housing, and we've done that for a couple of projects. One of them is called The Meadows, which is a 30-unit apartment complex located at 78th Street near 4th Plain Boulevard, over just a little bit south of Vancouver Mall. And in addition, we've also supported with that tool the CMAR Vancouver Family Housing Project, which is a 70-unit complex on 4th Plain Boulevard. So both of those will have units available for individuals and for families that earn 60% or less of the area median income. Additional low-income housing development has been supported by the city's efforts as well. The Merriweather Place is a 30-unit apartment complex on East 4th Plain. Isabella Court, a 60-unit complex on 62nd Avenue and 4th Plain. And Veterans Village is an 18-unit micro-house or mini-home project complex located on St. James Road. And each of those, all of those projects together are projected to add a little over 200 new affordable and low-income housing units to the City of Vancouver, meeting a much-needed need in the city. In addition, on the service side, the city has partnered with Vancouver Housing Authority in support of the Bridgeview project. The Bridgeview Resource Center will be a center that brings all of the services necessary to support folks getting out of a cycle of poverty and into self-sufficiency, all under one roof. And that center broke ground in late July. The project, along with the adjacent Caples Terrace project, will not only provide services to low-income folks who may be experiencing poverty, but also will add housing for very low-income adults. These are located in an area of the city that's centralized and supported by transit, so it'd be exceptional improvements there. The city supported that by contributing about $500,000 in both grants and fee waivers there. So, on a different front, I'd like to welcome our newest residents to the City of Vancouver, which is folks that reside in the Van Mall North annexation area. This is an area that we have been pursuing annexation of over the last about year and a half. As of August 1, so just a few days ago, we effectively annexed and welcomed about 4,500 new residents to the City of Vancouver residing in this Van Mall North area. This, combined with the kind of growth you've experienced over the last year, brings the total population of the City of Vancouver to about 180,000 people. So the area is about 2.25 square miles. It's located just north of Vancouver Mall and includes Green Meadows area as well as the area around Home Depot and Costco north of the Patten Expressway. So we look forward to welcoming these new residents to the City of Vancouver and providing great levels of service to our new residents, along with the rest of the city as well. So those are a few updates I wanted to share. As you know, if you tuned in last time, we solicit questions from folks in the community that about what might be on their mind. So we did get a few questions submitted in advance. I wanted to take a few minutes to try and answer those. A wide range of interests are on our residents' minds, so these represent a bit of a cross-section of that. The first question was about caring for our city streets. There's a strong interest in making sure that we have quality streets in the city, not only that are in good repair, but also that are attractive and the landscaping is maintained. About a year and a half ago, the City Council adopted a resource package to support that, and this year, the new revenues associated with that package actually have come into effect, and there was a big boost to our pavement management program. About a 60% increase in our annual funding for that program has allowed us to pave and preserve streets throughout the city in a way that we haven't been able to for decades. So when we wrap up this year's paving season, which will be wrapped up in the fall, we will have repaved 21 lane miles of streets. 115 lane miles of streets in addition to that will have been preserved with either a chip seal or a micro surfacing. And we will have also repaired or replaced 175 curb ramps, improving accessibility throughout the city. I think it's important to note that we have nearly 2,000 lane miles of of streets across the whole city. So while we've made substantial progress this year, we have to keep our eye on the long ball, and that is each year we will continue to work at improving the system. We're not able to get to every single neighborhood and every street in every year, but we're looking at trying to make sure that we make those dollars stretch as long as we can, and ultimately improve the overall system so that everyone can enjoy high-quality streets. Another question on our street system was, when would the city invest in protected, separated bike lanes on our street system? And there's a couple of things that have happened there. First is, this year, your City Council adopted a complete streets policy. That means that as we do make investments in our street system, we will do so in a way that makes sure that the resulting street serves the needs of all users, not just cars, but bicyclists, pedestrians, transit. And that was adopted just in the last couple of months. And that policy will guide how we use the street funding that I just mentioned. So a prime example of an immediate project that has happened as a result of that is new bike lanes being built on 8th Street, or being striped onto 8th Street in downtown, which will improve safety for cyclists, improve mobility for cyclists as well, without compromising mobility for cars. And it will connect two existing north-south bike routes through downtown at C Street and the Jefferson-Kaufman Street connection, which makes for a friendlier route for cyclists, as well as multiple modes of transportation to get to downtown events and locations. So, another street question has to do with 39th Street, and a question about enforcement of truck traffic on 39th Street. So about a year ago, the City Council adopted a West Side mobility strategy that was intended to balance the growing economy that we see in the industrial areas on the east side along Fruit Valley Road and out in the port, with the livability of our West Side historic neighborhoods. And one of the key strategies there was prohibiting trucks on 39th Street. So the council enacted an ordinance that prohibits those trucks. We've started to get signs up both on the Interstate 5 freeway as well as along the corridor, so that truck drivers know that trucks are prohibited there. And I think the key will be, we have, total of 7 signs covering the different travel routes to notify truck drivers of the through truck ban. There are still local truck trips that are allowed to serve businesses that are in that corridor, just not through truck trips. And the key will be enforcement. And the police department is currently in the mode of hiring and establishing additional traffic enforcement capacity in the department, which will focus not only on addressing these types of issues, but also traffic safety and enforcement throughout the city. So, and then lastly, wanted to address homelessness in the city. With the affordable housing crunch that we've experienced over the last few years, and the efforts that we're making now, In anticipation of adding more inventory and affordable housing to the system, we have seen an uptick in homelessness in the city, as have cities across the nation. There's really limited services in Vancouver to serve homeless, and they haven't really changed over the last couple of decades. Recently, Share House announced that they would be restricting the use of showers and toilets in their facility located at 12th and Lincoln. And there's concern about what impact that could have on the surrounding neighborhood and the rest of downtown. So we are working on with partners, including the county, Vancouver Housing Authority, Share House, and the Council for the Homeless, on make sure there's adequate facilities out there, at least on an interim basis, to serve a homeless population. A day center that the city established, the Friends of the Carpenter, which is just a little bit west of this site, it remains open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and that does provide sanitary facilities for folks. Share House does allow the use of restroom facilities during mealtime, so that will continue. The city will continue to try and work with partners and neighbors in the area to manage the impacts of right-of-way surrounding Share House. Larger picture, the city's engaging with the county, with Council for the Homeless, with Vancouver Housing Authority, and service providers across the city to advance additional facilities and resources to serve our homeless population and help get them connected with resources that hopefully will get them out of homelessness, connected with more permanent housing, training, and employment. So it's a very complex issue, but one that we are paying attention to, and hope to have additional things to report when we check in next. So it really is an incredibly exciting time in Vancouver. A lot of things going on, many of them positive, and we have strong leadership at the city with your city council and my commitment to managing the city in a way that helps us address all of the challenges and really pursue all the opportunities that we're experiencing here in Vancouver. I'm honored to be a part of it. I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to hear about what's going on at the city and submitting your questions. I just want to remind you, if you have any additional questions, you can submit those at any time using the hashtag AskVanWa. Appreciate your time. Until next time, let's all keep loving this place that we call home.